Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Chief Petty Officer Elizabeth Miller. Today's ceremony marks the 105th anniversary of the loss of HMAS AE1. His Majesty's Australian submarine, AE1, was launched in the yard of Vickers Limited at Barrow-in-Furness, England, on the 22nd of May, 1913. The first of two E-class submarines built for the Royal Australian Navy. Manned by Royal Navy officers with a mixed crew of sailors drawn from the Royal Navy and the Royal Australian Navy, AE1 departed England in March 1914, travelled through the Suez Canal and reached Sydney in May 1914. Although it remained surfaced for most of the voyage, this was the longest transit distance ever travelled by a submarine. At the outbreak of the First World War, AE1 joined naval forces assigned to the capture of the German Pacific colonies and took part in operations leading to occupation of German New Guinea. The loss of AE1 and her entire complement of 3 officers and 32 sailors on the 14th of September 1914 was the Royal Australian Navy's first major tragedy. It is not known what caused AE1 to disappear without trace. Exhaustive searches were conducted without success. In December 2017, the wreck of AE1 was finally found in 300 metres of water off the Duke of York Island group. In April 2018, an expedition performed a detailed survey of the wreck. Over 8,000 images were collected and processed to generate a photogrammetric model of the wreck. A team of experts is now analysing the footage to better understand what happened to the AE1. We warmly welcome this evening the family of Petty Officer Robert Smail, whose story will be told shortly. We're honoured to acknowledge this evening Commodore Tim Brown, Director General Submarines, Royal Australian Navy, Mr Dennis Lyne, representing of the Naval Association of Australia, ACT section, and Mr John King, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of Frenchville State School, North Rockhampton, Queensland. Australia's Federation Guard is a tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier within the Hall of Memory.
Folk Party, hope! Folk Party present arms. Folk Party reverse. Folk Party rest on.
If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem, which today will be led by the Sydney Welsh Choir.
Folk Party, attention! Folk Party, present arms.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, of beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Folk Party, shoulder arms. Folk Party, order arms.
Students, you may be seated. If there are any visitors that are able to be seated, please do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Petty Officer Robert Smail. Robert Smail was born on the 26th of January 1888 in Glashiel, Scotland, the son of Robert and Elizabeth Smail. He attended school in the village of Spot, south of the coastal town of Dunbar. After leaving school at the age of 16, Smail joined the merchant service. He sailed on the Baltic trade route before joining a four-masted sailing ship, Loch Tay, with a cargo bound for Port Melbourne. During the journey, Loch Tay was becalmed, and the cargo had to be offloaded to another ship. As a result, the crew were discharged in Australia. Smail then joined a ship, possibly the SS Kuma, as it plied its trade along Australia's eastern seaboard. Smail joined the Commonwealth Naval Service on the 3rd of August 1908, signing on for 5 years. With his previous service as a merchant sailor taken into account, he was awarded the first of his first Good Conduct badges in January 1909. He was sent to Scotland along with other sailors to commission the Commonwealth Naval Forces ship Yarra, a 700-ton torpedo boat destroyer. The ship was commissioned in early September 1910 and sailed for Australia shortly after in company with her sister ship, HMAS Parramatta. The ships arrived in Australia in November. During the ship's voyage around Australia, Yarra stopped in at Launceston, where Smail had friends. In mid-June 1911, Smail was promoted to petty officer. A year later, he was sent to the shore establishment HMAS Cerberus. On the 1st of July, he signed on for a further 7 years' service with the Navy and sailed for England with men who had been selected to crew the now Royal Australian Navy's new E-class submarines. Arriving in England, he travelled to Vickers Shipyard in Barrow-Furness, Scotland, and witnessed the building and launch of HMAS AE1. While in England, Smail took every opportunity to visit his family and convinced them to move to Australia, paying for their travel and deposit on a house in Melbourne. Smail's second Good Conduct badge would have been awarded for his leadership and drive during the sea trials of AE1, was awarded in January 1914. In March 1914, AE1 and AE2 sailed from Portsmouth bound for Sydney. The journey was arduous, with both vessels suffering mechanical problems. At times, the operating temperatures inside the submarine reached 38 degrees Celsius, and the air became toxic, polluted by gases from the engine room. In May 1914, the submarines reached Sydney and were met with intense curiosity from the public. To the imagination of the Australian people, the underwater capsule's Jules Verne novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was a stuff of science fiction. When the First World War began in August 1914, the submarines were assigned to the RAN component of the Australian Naval and Military Expedition Force, providing forward protection to the fleet as it made its way to New Britain. The AN and MEF went into action on the 11th of September and captured the radio station at Bitapaka late in the afternoon. 3 days later, AE1 and HMAS Parramatta departed Blanche Bay to patrol Cape Cazal. AE1 was last seen by HMAS Parramatta around 2:30 p.m. When the submarine had not reported in by 8 p.m, ships were sent to look for the missing vessel, but despite searches of the area, no trace of the AE1 was ever found. Not even the telltale shimmer of escaping water on the oil on the water. The crew of 3 officers and 32 sailors were believed to have drowned. Robert Smail was 26 years old. It was a sore blow for the fledgling Royal Australian Navy. The loss of HMAS AE1 with all hands was the first loss of an RAN vessel. Despite searches, the wreck of HMAS AE1 was unable to be located. In December 2017, a multinational team aboard the survey vessel Frugo Equator located the wreck of AE1 off the Duke of York Islands. The ensuing investigation found that the sub's loss was caused by a ventilation valve in the hull, which had been partially opened. It was not clear if it had been human error, or mechanical fault. But as the sub began its dive, water flooded the engine room. When AE1 reached its 100-metre crush depth, an implosion is believed to have torn through the vessel, killing all on board instantly. Today, Robert Smail and his crewmates are commemorated on the Plymouth Naval Memorial in the United Kingdom. His name and those of his Australian crewmates are listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died by serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifices told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Petty Officer Robert Smail, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Catafalque Party, shoulder, arms.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea. No flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a fast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catafalque Party, present arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catafalque Party, in words, turn. Catafalque Party, quick march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys and students, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.